Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be discussing my module, Outwell, Basin Depot, which recently joined up with the other members of the NCMA, which is Nearly Competent Modelers Association, when we exhibited together at Statfold Country Park. Now, if you want to see the module running with all the other modules, I'll stick a link to the video up in the top right if I do it correctly. If not, there'll be a link in the description, so you can go watch a video over at LMM which recently was released and you can see it in full force. But as you're seeing here, there's just some trains running in the background on it. Apologies for any stuttering, the track does need cleaning. I haven't done it since the show. But yeah, I thought we'd give a debrief. What went well, what didn't go so well, what I'm going to be improving on in the future. So, I guess first thing is, show was a success. The module worked way better than I expected, and part of that is because it worked in a very different way than I expected. The idea was I was going to take it along to the show. It was just going to be one of many in a line, and the trains were just going to run from one side to the other, and the whole yard section wasn't going to operate at all. However, unfortunately, Charles couldn't make it, and his station module was going to be the centerpiece where the trains passed. So a train would come in from the left, a train would come in from the right, they'd pass and continue on in their respective directions and to the fiddle yards at the end. Now, unfortunately, with Charles not being there, mine was the only other module that had a loop, and the loop wasn't long enough for what we had planned, because when we wrote the guidebook, or when Loz wrote the guidebook, I should say, we had a specified train length in mind, and we always knew that my loop wasn't going to be long enough for that. Excuse me. So we never expected that loop to be used. However, with a little bit of wiring messing around, which again I'll refer you to Laurie's video over on LMM channel for quite how that worked, we were able to have it operating with the loop being the passing point. So my module became the centerpiece of the whole run, and I feel awkward saying that because every time I say it and think about it, it seems like I'm being big-headed, and it kind of makes me uncomfortable, but it really was. And the whole weekend I had people saying to me, thank you for bringing this, because if you hadn't, this would have been a very different show. We'd have only had one train running and so on and so forth. And it wasn't until I got home on the Monday that it actually sunk in. Yes, I'd built something. Yes, it worked. And yes, it really was the centerpiece of all our modules. So anyway, with that in mind, I have a few changes that are going to be done to it. First of all, I'm not happy with the gravel/dirt section in the middle, where the vehicles would come in, turn around. One, it's too clean. Two, I use chinchilla sand, which has been talked about for years in modelling. Absolutely hate it. It cracked and lifted so badly, and it may be that the substrate I used underneath caused some of that, but either way, I'm not happy with it. It has to go. And secondly, when I replace it, it's going to need weathering, because it's just too clean, too bright. So that's got to be sorted. My apple trees, for my first attempt at making trees, I'm kind of happy with them, but I think they could do with some improvement, so they may get replaced. But we'll see. They're a lower priority. the higher priority, and I've already got the switches sitting here on my desk, is I'm going to actually wire this so it can operate as a passing loop. Because before, I just wired it mainly for use at home. So the loop section was isolated, the head shunt was isolated, and the rear siding were all isolated from the main, but they couldn't be operated independently of the main. You had to draw the power from the main line. So it's going to be wired. So there'll be essentially 4 switches. So 2 controllers can operate the module, and you'll have one section that can control the left hand side and either of the 2 passing loops. So that will be 2 separate switches, and the right hand side and either of the 2 passing loops will be on another 2 switches. Now, if someone accidentally has 2 switches on at the same time, it won't cause a conflict because, well, it just won't. I'm not kind of up on how the electrics work, but basically we proved that at the show. You could have essentially one controller could run a train around the entire loop. So that's fine. That's going to be widened. I don't know how I'm going to wire in the head shunt yet and the rear siding, because that's obviously going to have to change. It may be that controller 1 on the left hand side has control of the head shunt, and controller 2 has control of the rear siding, and then I can just switch them all on when I'm at home. So that's work that's got to be done on that. And the building, I'm kind of happy as a scratch build on my little depot building, but I am in early discussions with Elcott Creative, who is one of the sponsors of our modular group, and we may be able to have one of their laser cut kits built purposely for that. And if that happens, I'm going to have a couple for myself, and I will discuss with them about having that on sale. So anyone who wants to build a Wisbech and Outwell tramway related layout will be able to get one of those for themselves. So yeah, I guess that's kind of all I've got to discuss on this one. Once again, the show was so much fun. I was on it for the entirety of the Sunday, apart from when I went to the toilet. So I didn't even stop to eat at lunch. I was literally eating whilst running trains. And when I wasn't running trains on the main, I was working the traverses on the end. So, yeah. I think that's kind of where I want to bring this video to a close. So, thank you for listening to me ramble for, 8.5 minutes. Wow. And, yeah, stay tuned if you want to see the changes to the module. I have still to release a video on how the wiring tube points work, so stick around for that. And finally, we're going to have some play with some trains, hopefully, because I want to expand my rolling stock. But I don't just want to have ready to run. I want to do some kit stuff. So, let's say thank you ever so much, guys, for watching this video. Do go check out the LMM video if you haven't seen it already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.